Welcome to the BX Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Fowler, and we have another exceptional guest to share their insights and area of expertise with you on the show. Now, just before we jump into the episode, make sure you tap that follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app to get more BX Podcast episodes right there in your pocket. Now, if you would like to find out more about BX and attend a meeting either in person or online, head over to bxnetworking.com/locations. That's bxnetworking.com/locations. Anne McKeown is a highly regarded mindset coach who has worked with corporations, charities, and the education sector, as she helps individuals and teams to step up, speak up, and show up with confidence in business and in life. Anne is a multi-award-winning coach, including a BX winner in 2021 and the Local Business Awards winner in 2022. He was a published author and the founder of Women's Self-Empowerment Meetup in Sydney, which has over 700 members and growing. Anne, welcome to the BX Podcast.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm looking forward to our conversation, as I do with everyone. I know I say that a lot, but for the people that are listening to the show and regular listeners of the BX Podcast, there's a lot of topics that we explore, but this one will really hit home. It's something that every single person will be able to relate with around patterns, beliefs, and so much more. And Anne is the person for us to explore that with. So to kick us off, let's start with a really easy one. This is, how did your business journey begin? What got you started in this world of business and women's empowerment?
Well, thank you for asking. It's actually interesting. I had never had any intention of starting a business, believe it or not. In the UK, obviously, I can tell I'm from Scotland. I worked for BP Oil and I used to coach sales teams. And very early on, I realized that this was the same people that were successful all the time. And I started to wonder why that was. And it sent me down the path of learning about mindset and setting goals and belief in yourself. And so I studied NLP in the 1990s, so it was a long time ago. And then all through the 2000s, I did positive psychology with Martin Seligman. And I just kind of enjoyed learning that. When my kids were small, I got a job in a high school working with kids that were struggling and they were causing disruption in the classroom, really because they'd no guidance and no belief in themselves. And then we moved to Australia and I didn't work for 7 years. So I was a stay-at-home mum and I hit 50, menopause, and full of self-doubt, completely lost my confidence, had no connections here in the corporate world anymore, felt that the world was moving fast, technology was moving quickly. My kids were able to do things on computers that I'd never seen. And I started to worry about the second half of my life and think, what have I got to offer? And I still felt young enough and energetic enough. And I knew I had some skills, but I felt as if my skills were outdated and I was getting old. And so I actually went to see a coach. I went to see a life coach recommended by a friend because I just needed a bit of guidance. And she said to me, well, there must be other women that feel like you. And I was thinking, no, I think I'm the only weird one. And she said, why don't you use your skills that you've got through your NLP training and your positive psychology and working in corporations and see if you can bring other women together and help them? And I thought, I could never do that. Who would listen to me? Nobody here knows me. I just was just full of doubt. And then a friend said to me, you can start meetup groups. And she said they're free and they do all the marketing for you to bring people. And I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose. And I was looking for friends as well, to be honest, because I didn't have family here. And that first night that I advertised self-empowerment for women, I had 60 women turn up. Wow. And that blew me away. I just could not believe it. And what I did was just talk about how I was struggling. And then other women opened up and said the same. And then without realizing it, I think the trainer in me came to the fore, and I was like, but do you know of this technique? And do you know how the mind affects us and the outcomes in our life? And and a lot of them had never heard of any of this stuff. And I just presumed everybody knew it. So then I was sharing it. And then some of these women, as the months went on, said, I don't want to share everything in a group forum. Would you help me one-on-one? And I was like, yeah, sure. And they would come to the house and sit on the sofa, and we would work through the problems for an hour and a half, and I would charge $100. And, and that's how my business grew. It was very organic, to be honest.
Wow. Take me back a little bit. Describe the feeling of hitting the big 5-0 and then exploring the mindset shift, the understanding and the awarenesses that came from exploring the feeling of being kind of lost and a bit left behind in the fast-paced development of technology.
Yeah, look, it's a pretty horrible place to be, because I think often we get our identity through our work and through what we do, not necessarily who we are. And as a stay-at-home mom, society doesn't really value that role as much as it should, I think. And we don't get paid and stuff, so there's it can leave you feeling less than. And it was interesting because I knew all of this stuff, but as we know, it's much harder to work on yourself. Like, we all have our own blind spots. And that's what I say to my clients now, is that you can't see what's holding you back because it's all in your head. And I had my own blind spots at that time. I mean, things I was saying to myself about what was lacking in me and in my life and in my future, which hadn't even happened yet, people that knew me would have said, Dan, that's ridiculous, because they didn't see me the way that I saw myself. And it's funny because as a parent, you're constantly encouraging your children, like even when they're babies, we're saying, you can walk, you can talk, you can be good at school and draw, but we don't for ourselves. And if you don't have someone around doing it for you, then the pattern can be that the most dominating thing in your life is that negative self-talk that's going on in your head. And that's what happened to me. And I just got down this negative spiral, and it's really hard to claw your way back out of that.
And you've brought up a really interesting point here. This is how you see yourself, versus how other people see you. And I've seen this play out in so many different scenarios in the work that I do and the work that I've done with other people. The whole idea of actually having that confidence to come forward and, be the person that other people see you as, and actually understanding who that person is. What's that process like, and where does the gap sit between how we see ourselves and how others see us?
So I think the process starts with awareness, because often we don't reflect on ourselves. We emotionally just go through every day, based on how we're feeling. Like, we don't tend to logically think through our way forward in life. We tend to, if I feel like doing this, I'll do it. And if I don't feel like doing this, I won't do it. And those feelings are going on in our head. Other people don't see our feelings. Other people just see our actions. They just see the result of what it is that we're either doing or not doing. I think having someone that you can confide in when you are feeling down on yourself or mislead, feeling a bit misjudging yourself, can be good. What I do with people that I work with is I look at who are you and who do you want to be, and the who are you is who do you see yourself as, who do you think you are, and that can be very different to who are you in practical terms. So if I ask questions like, what are you naturally good at? What do other people call on your help for? What are your values and your beliefs? That the written in black and white, when you take the emotion out of it, can be quite a different answer to emotionally who we think we are on a bad day.
And these patterns and beliefs I'm very excited to explore this topic a bit further. The thing that I want to bring kind of to the forefront first is these patterns, beliefs, and everything that we start to explore and experience through this process. What do you often see as the outcomes, or not the outcomes, but how this currently plays out before being explored in people's lives, their business, especially for women in business? What effect and what role do these patterns and beliefs play in how we act in our everyday lives, especially when it comes to business?
That is such a great question, because they are the most powerful thing. If we could change people's beliefs, well, we do work to change people's beliefs. If we really believed that everything was possible, if we really believed in ourselves, like, I mean, in your heart of hearts, you really have that confidence. The successful people, the people that I worked with when I did the sales training, they just had no doubt. They just had this really strong belief in themselves. And what I often say to people is, well, you believe the doubt, but why don't you doubt the doubt and believe the belief? But we don't. And we need to turn that on its head, because those beliefs become so embedded, and they come from all sorts of directions. So they come from societal expectations and beliefs that we have about ourselves, whether it's women, whether it's a business owner, whether it's you were clever at school or not. We get those beliefs put on us from others. So whether other people believed in us or not, and other people's beliefs of us can have a huge impact on us. There's actually a study that was done with some kids in a school where the teacher was told that of the two groups, one was very smart and the other needed assistance, and that she had to work with these groups accordingly. So she knew she could really push the smart kids and get them to get A+ in every subject. But the kids that she was told were struggling, she would be a bit more gentle, a bit more slow, and not push them quite as hard. At the end of the experiment, a year later, what she believed they were both capable of is exactly what they came out with. The A students, the bright ones, all did really well. The not so bright ones didn't do very well, below average. And then at the end of the experiment, they told her that every child was of the same IQ level, that they had mixed them up and there was no differential between those kids. The only difference was her belief in them. And so it's not just our belief in ourselves, it's the belief in people around us, their belief in us. If somebody said, "Oh, don't do that, it's too difficult. You always give up. I don't think you're capable of that." And we take that on board. And there's that saying about something getting under your skin.
Yeah.
It's because literally that energy gets into our cells. And it gets carried around in our mind and through our nervous system and everything. And we play it out and it can become a reality. So that's the belief. The pattern that comes from that is the behaviors. So if we believe something, we think it, then we act on that. And those patterns make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. Because then we act out, "Oh yeah, I'm not really any good at this. I'm not going to be able to manage this." And then, "Oh, see, I was right. I knew I was no good."
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy in those patterns. And there's two things that are coming up for me here. And they're two different perspectives on the same, that create the same result. One is your external factors. One is your internal factors. I would like to look at a bit of the self-reflective point of pattern recognition here. And we're going very deep, very fast right now. This is something that I'm sure takes people a long time to get to. But this pattern recognition and self-reflection kind of mindset to bring in, often one of the things that kind of keeps rattling around in my mind on this is the patterns that we have. They are self-fulfilling prophecies. They keep replicating. But the faster that they get nabbed and adjusted, the better the desired outcome. However, as we're looking at this oftentimes from an older perspective of kind of 40 to 60 range, and you look back on your life and see how the patterns keep playing out, how do you recognize and reconcile what might feel like guilt for not picking up on the pattern recognition sooner, that now that you can change it and you've recognized it and you've brought awareness to it, that it can actually that can be changed and have a better positive impact on your life?
Yeah, look, we have positive and negative emotions, don't we, in everything that we do through life. And I think negative emotions, we know, just don't serve us. And so guilt has a place if forgiveness is needed. And I think if guilt is there, then forgiveness is the next step. And learning to forgive yourself for what you didn't know. We're terribly hard on ourselves as human beings. And one of the things that I do a lot with clients is what I call the unlearning. It's unlearning all the bad habits. It's unlearning the negative self-talk. It's unlearning those old patterns, like the physical as well as the thinking patterns. You don't know what you don't know when you're young. And I think we all, when we're young, we're striving, we're gaining, we're building, we want to change the world, we want to be the best. We've got ego, and that ego is good when we're young. We need it to push us forward. But as we get older in life and we start to reflect back, the ego can calm down a bit. We've got less to prove. And so I think putting guilt and regret, they just don't serve us. And so coming up with ways of being able to let go. I don't know if you know the story of the monkey that there's nuts inside a coconut. It finds that it can hear the nuts inside the coconut, and it puts its hand in the coconut to get the nuts, but it opens its palm and it can't get its hand back out again. But all it needs to do is let go of the nuts and wriggle its hand back out again, but it won't let go and it won't let go. And when we don't let go, we continue to be stuck. And so that being able to give ourselves forgiveness, the recognition is the big step forward. The fact that you're now mature enough to realize that the way that you behaved and thought and the patterns of before didn't serve you or those around you or were negative. But we can't change the past. And keeping our mind stuck in the past, if we're trying to physically move on, it just doesn't work. You got to have the mind and the body working towards the future.
And that positive implementation of change, what is the mindset shift required or that needs adoption to go, okay, I'm letting these things go. I'm dropping the nuts in the coconut. What do I need to do now to take the positive steps forward? How can I now change this going forward?
Well, there are two things that we work. We can work the mind to get the body moving, right? So say you kind of want to go to the gym, but the body's tired, but the mind says, no, come on, we're going to do it. The other way is that we can use the body to shift the mind. When there's guilt and regret, it's the mind that's in control. So we actually turn it on its head and we use the body to shift the mind, because by taking action, even if you don't believe that action is going to make any difference, even if you're still carrying the guilt and regret, you take the action. So say, for example, you have a diary of what triggers that negativity or that guilt. And every day you look at that diary, you write down, when did you feel that way? How did it manifest itself in your behavior? But then you worked through it anyway. Do you know there's that story about the bear hunt? You know, you can't go over it, you can't go around it, you can't go around it. You have to go through it. And it's a really painful journey. Personal development is so painful. It's why a lot of people don't want to do it, because it's very confronting, and we have to change the way that we think and the way that we behave, and often the way that we speak. But when you start to have a diary and see what triggers you, and you take the daily action set up with your coach and your mentor, the mindset will change, because you're creating new pathways in the brain and you're becoming the new you.
The new you is not just a trendy phrase, but a legitimately personal one to every person. And it's something that, for those that kind of understand that, and the thing that, the process that you go through, you celebrate that because it's worthy of celebration. For the people who are looking at this going, okay, there is something that I need to do here, and I've got, I've either been a stay-at-home mum, or I want to get back into business, or I want to take that next step in my career now that, the kids have left the nest and that sort of stuff. What are the first steps on that journey to start moving through this very scary thing to take action?
I think if you're feeling like that, you've already started. That because there's already a desire there for change. Everything starts with desire. And then I would just do a really simple pros and cons list of, this is something that I would like to do, but I don't know if I've got the energy. I don't know if I've got the time. I don't know if I'm good enough. So then just do, what would be the pros if this really happened, if my dream came true, what would I benefit? And what would I have to sacrifice? Because often we have to sacrifice something, and it might be you're not going to be watching telly every night for 3 hours after dinner because you're going to be working on your business instead, or coming up with ideas instead. The next thing is, when you've got that down in black and white, you can start to visualize, how would it feel? What would it look like? What would be the benefits, not just for yourself, but for those around you? And I think the biggest thing is to get one person in your corner. Have one person that really wants the best for you, and who believes in you, and who encourages you to go forward. Because we'll have so many naysayers, and ourselves included, in our own head, oh, it's all too hard. Just have one person, a friend or a coach or someone that belong to a community where people can encourage you to get going, and then follow someone that's done it. Like if we're going to have patterns of behavior, follow in the footsteps of someone who's done what you want to do, and even, unless they're really famous, but if there might be somebody local or in your vicinity or in a networking group, and you can say to them, how did you do that? How did you get started? Reach out and ask for help. Most people are very willing to share.
I love that you've brought this point up, because it ties into something that I've got a personal curiosity with. It's called the Batman effect. By the laugh, I figured that's something you might have heard of.
I'm not sure what it is, but I like it.
Okay, I'll give you the brief version of it. It was this science experiment that took place in a primary school or kindergarten, and they told this group of 4-year-olds that they wanted to do this certain task, and the task was to particular task escapes me right now, but what they did was, in doing that, they grouped the kids into different categories. I think it was 3 different groups. One of them they just told to be themselves. The second one they gave a bit of motivation to, but the third group they got them to pretend to be their favorite superhero. And the group that pretended to be their favorite superhero took on the persona of the values that they had. And kids at 4 don't really understand the full value of values, but they took on the persona. They absorbed it. They had confidence. They had strength. They had all these amazing things. If they were Superman, they thought they could fly. and they absolutely outperformed everybody. And I love that you've brought this up, because it ties in perfectly. If you're not the person that you think you ought to be to achieve what you want to do, then bring in that persona of the Batman effect, and yeah, put the cowl on, be the person you want to be, choose a character, real or not, and you can embody the values of that character, to kind of apply into your own life until you get to that level of value. Now, this does bring me to something else that you've mentioned a couple of times through this conversation, is the power of external. So we've touched a bit on internal, and there's only so far that we can go into in this length of a conversation. But then there's the power of external. And Jim Rohn said you're the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. You've mentioned this a couple of times, and you've actually been an example of doing this in bringing together your own community. Where do you see the ultimate value and the ultimate power of bringing together your group of external support around you to help you move forward and take these steps in achieving your own goals and vision?
Well, I just know that I don't know everything, and especially in starting a business or anything that's challenging and stepping out of your comfort zone. We all want a safety net, and even if that's just a couple of friends that will hold your hand on either side and say, "Come on, we're with you as you do this." I think if we're with people who value life, they know life is short, they want to experience life to the full, they want to use their skills and talents to the full, then that pushing is a pleasure. But you will have other people around you who are very comfortable sitting on the sofa watching telly every night, and they don't want to go to a networking event at 7:00 in the morning, or miss out on watching TV in the evening to watch an educational video. And so the fight within ourselves is strong enough, the I can and I can't, between the conscious mind wanting to push you forward and the unconscious wanting to keep you safe, that if we add negative people externally into that mix as well, we get exhausted. The fight just becomes harder. We've only got so much time and energy to get through a day or to make a mission happen. And if on the way you've not got your wee superheroes saying, "Come on, let's all fly together," if you've got people going, "Oh, what are you putting on a Batman outfit for? You look stupid," then it just completely deflates, and the mental message that sends to the physical body is, "Oh, I'm just going to give up and I'm not going to bother." So for me, reaching out, and whether it's online education, whether it's joining groups and people around you, set up a little mastermind of your own. A lot of those women that came to my group early on, once my business started to build, they then came and said to me, "Look, I've sorted a lot of the kind of life coaching issues, but how did you start making money out of your business? Can you show me? Because I have a passion and I would like to learn how I can do that." And so they've become great friends, and we help each other. We all rise together, and we're helping to build each other up. And before my meetup group, I didn't have that. I was very lonely and very unsure of myself.
That's a really interesting kind of perspective in the people that you've got around you, and I do love that you've played on the Batman effect here, and putting your costumes on and all flying together. It gets to a certain point, and I know I've experienced this, and I'm sure the people listening, some of whom would have experienced this as well, is that as you're growing, you're developing not just a business, but you're developing yourself. And I would like to speak to more of the business aspect here, because I do feel it is a really important one, especially for people going through this process or on the journey of beginning it, is when you've got your group of people. You're growing, but they might not be. What is it like when you've got your group of people, but some who were on the journey with you are now holding back, this sum of 5 around you, and you need to evolve past what level they're able to support you at? What's it like in that conversation, and 2, finding somebody new to be able to elevate you to that next level?
Look, I think it happens all the time. We all grow at different levels, at different times, at different speeds. I'm a great believer in really honest conversations. They can be very tough conversations, but I used to, if someone said something negative that pulled me down, I would feel a bit sad and down about it, but I wouldn't confront them and I wouldn't challenge it and I wouldn't bring it up. Now I do. Now I'll say to them, what you just said wasn't helpful. In fact, it's actually brought me down and it makes me feel a bit yuck. Are you not keen on this journey anymore? Have you lost your energy? Have you lost your enthusiasm? And sometimes they'll say, oh, I'm just having a bad week. And sometimes they'll say, yeah, you know what? It's all too hard and I just don't want to do it anymore. And you can gently, quietly distance yourself and find a new tribe. Like, I think that's normal for us. It's like climbing a ladder. And if you stay on the same rung, you're not going to get anywhere. You want to go on the next one, and there's not always room on the ladder, and others don't want to climb with you. So it becomes a choice. It's hard. It's really hard. When you said, what is it like? I think the thing is, if you're continuing to climb, is not to gloat, because your journey is your journey, and it doesn't mean that those that are not on the journey with you are less than. It just means they're on a different ladder, or maybe they're still on the path and they haven't started the climb yet, and they started with enthusiasm, but they've got tired and they've given up. But the thing is to not let them hold you back, as and pull you down as you're trying to climb up. And you'll know, like, your gut instinct will tell you, this person doesn't quite gel with the group anymore, and they'll know too. Like, it's always the white elephant in the room. And if someone's being really negative, I just now will say, I get the feeling that you're just not feeling this anymore, and can you help me understand where you're at? And usually if I say that, it'll come out and they'll be like, yeah, I've had enough.
Yeah. There's one more thing that I'd like to touch on before we wrap up, and you've kind of led us into this perfectly, is the level of energy alignment. So some people have the amazing ability to resonate and pick up on people's energy for either good or bad. Sometimes it's not always great to be able to do that. Some are just completely oblivious to the world of resonant energy within yourselves and picking it up from other people. When you do start to feel and resonate with people's energy, and not necessarily good or bad, but what can you do to protect your own energy in that space and not necessarily absorb people's energy, but create your own resonance?
Oh, I love this question. I actually have a technique that I use for that. And you're right, positive energy can be draining as well. If someone comes in and they're full on, we can end up exhausted when they leave. And negative energy, the same, can leave us feeling very flat. So I have a technique where I go into my bubble. I don't know if you've heard of this, but
I haven't heard of this one yet.
My bubble it's light and it's my space, and no one is allowed in my bubble. But I have my 5 senses on high alert in my bubble. So I see something that really cheers me up. So it might be a picture of my dog or something like that. I hear things that I love. So my favourite music for me, usually it's Scottish dancing music or something that gives me that. It kind of cheers me up. I usually have something that I can taste, so maybe a glass of champagne or my favorite ice cream. So all my senses are in my bubble, and I am in my element there. It's my safe space. Now, nothing can penetrate through my bubble. So if there is negative energy around, it can't escape through into my bubble and affect me. So it's like a shield around myself. But it also, and this is the bit I love, is that it has a reflection on it. So if someone draws a dirty look, it reflects straight back at them. If someone is with ugly language, it reflects right back at them. If there's horrible behavior, it bounces off my bubble straight back at them. And so I have a real sense of preserving myself and my energy within that.
And the great thing is, and especially the thing that I'm picking up from this, for the people who are listening going, how on earth do I get a bubble? Like, what's my bubble? How do I get that? The great thing that I'm picking up on is that it is buildable. It's creatable. It's a
Can I
creatable
speak
bubble.
to that?
Yeah.
I'm urging to tell you how you get your bubble.
Go for it.
Every single thing we do in life starts as a thought. And what our thoughts do is they use our imagination and they create a picture. Everything that we think of is in a picture before it's ever in words. And so your bubble is in your imagination. But in the same way that we picture all the negative things that are going to happen, we can picture positive things. And that's all it is. It's using the imagination to picture yourself walking about in this beautiful light bubble with all your favorite things on the inside and imagining that it's giving you protection. But because equally we could say, oh, I'm scared, and we imagine going into a situation that's going to be terrible and someone's going to say something awful, and that's all pictures in our mind.
It's catastrophizing.
Yeah. Through pictures, it's all in the imagination. And I'm sure you've heard this, but the mind doesn't know the difference between a real truth and an imagined truth. It just believes what we tell it. It believes what we show it, and we show it through the pictures in our mind.
Yeah. The other thing that, if you're okay, I'll add this to what you've just shared, because I love it so much, is that the mind can't comprehend the negative. And I heard this from Simon Sinek in a very short little clip. And the way that we can prove that that's true is in one simple statement. Don't think of an elephant.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. It pops into your mind.
Yeah.
And I love that it is this kind of world of being able to reconstruct and use the neuroplasticity of your mind. That's a big word on a podcast. To reconstruct the thought patterns, to bring these positive images, to remove that negative factor, to replace it with the positive vision of where you want to go. So it's more of a future projection rather than a past projection. And I think you and I could probably keep having this conversation for a very long time. But for the people that do want to kind of listen more, understand more, and potentially start to look at putting all of these things into action in their own lives, I'd like for you to tell us a bit more about your business, how people can find you, what you do with them, and how you work with people.
Oh, thank you, Ryan. That's very kind of you. My website is just annemckeown.com. So it's my name, ANNEMCKEOWN. Got my husband to thank for that nice surname, annemckeown.com. And I actually have some free resources on there. I have a short 10-step little video program. I have a book that you can download in PDF format, which has got questions and things in it. It's called How to Take Back Control of Your Life, which is what I had to do. Because these women said to me, well, how did you do it? And I was like, well, I don't really know. And then when I sat and thought through, how did I do it? It started with the vision. It started with the desire, knowing that I couldn't continue the way that I was. So I'm on LinkedIn as well under Anne McKeown, and Instagram and other socials. I'm also a BX member, so look out for me there.
And also in the BX member exchange as well.
Yeah.
People can touch base with you if you are a member listening to this. And thank you so much for being a guest on the BX podcast. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, me too.
And I know that we could probably go for at least a couple of hours, but I'll leave our listeners with some surprises, great surprises, when they actually have a conversation with you. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it a lot too. Thanks.
That wraps it up for today's episode of the BX podcast. You can get more of the show by simply tapping the follow or subscribe button on your favourite podcast app. To join us at a live and in-person or online event, head over to bxnetworking.com/locations. That's bxnetworking.com/locations to find a meeting near you. We look forward to talking to you next time on the BX podcast.